The Struggle for New France, the French and Indian War, 1755 to 1762. This is the second edition here. This is produced by Blue Panther, which is kind of a third-party publisher. They do games for White Dog and Hollandspiel and others, and that's kind of their business model, is helping smaller publishers get their products out to other people or out to us wargamers. The designer is Bill Molyneaux, and you might recall that I've talked a little bit about him in the past. I did a recent video on Gateway Games and talked about Bloody Mohawk and Savage Wilderness. Well, Bill is redoing those games. They are coming out in under his title, this BMG Bill Molyneaux Games. I think he's also might call these Fastplay Wargames. Not certain, but he's kind of branched out on his own. And this Board Game Volume 1 and Board Game Volume 2, I think, correspond to the same, I think, title or battles that are covered in Bloody Mohawk and Savage Wilderness here. You have to see the same kind of setup, and I think he's doing this on his own now, moved a little bit on from Lock and Load Publishing and doing these on his own. And so I think there's going to be, maybe there's going to be bigger maps or bigger counters or what have you. But that's under BMG or Bill Molyneaux Games. And he also has a couple of other games in here. He's got a Battle for Brandywine. Well, actually, it's the same one. It's the Deluxe Edition or the Basic Edition of that. And then he has this game as well that's out here. And this is a redo of his earlier one. I think he, if I'm not mistaken, in which I could very well be mistaken, I think he did this title under a different name with Worthington, but I could be confusing another game that he's done, because he's done a lot in this space. He's kind of somewhat of an expert on the French and Indian War. He is a longtime reenactor and in this space, in the French and Indian War, doing researching the battles and doing reenactments of these type of battles, which is kind of a unique space in this. You don't hear a lot about French and Indian War reenactors. Of course, he probably knows all of them. So so this is a strategic level, where those other ones I was talking about are definitely tactical. They're very down to the individual battles themselves. This is more of a strategic game dealing with the French and Indian War from 1755 to 1762. As you can see here, it's for 1 to 2 players. It's 60 to 90 minutes, and it's 12 plus on the age. You get to see some of the counters in here, and I believe it's kind of a point-to-point game, and it might actually be a kind of a CDG type game. This looks like it's got poker-sized cards, and you have these point-to-point type sections on the map. When we break in here, we'll take a look at that. In a time of adventure and exploration in the young North American colonies, competition over land and resources in the fertile Ohio River Valley has spiraled into conflict. This localized clash will expand across the continent and then throughout the world, eventually leading to the global struggle between the French and British empires over their colonial holdings. Will British led by the illustrious generals as Braddock, Monckton, and Wolfe defeat the French and seize Montreal, Quebec, and Louisbourg? Or will the French, under the command of Dieskau, Villars, and Montcalm, golly, I'm butchering it today, sorry, put an end to the British ambitions and preserve their foothold in the New World? By the way, as a footnote, I butcher it every day. In the struggle for the New France, the French and Indian War, all these events and more are possible as you make choices that will decide the fate of the continent. So you get one 22 by 17 map, 2-player aid, 62 poker-sized cards, 176 5/8 counters, 5/8 inch counters, 2 6-sided dice, and a rule booklet. So let's get in here and see what we have in store. And you can see from this box here, this Blue Panther is typically come in these kind of smaller boxes, and the counter is kind of usually kind of a laser cut. They're kind of a really thick, good quality counter, but they have a little bit of a unique cut to them. So there's your box, sturdy enough, smaller box there. Here's your dice. Here are your cards. And this is typical. They come in these little slips here. We'll slip those off in a second. Let's get to the counters. As you can see, the counters, and you're not here with me, but if you were, there's a little bit of a unique smell to these. It's kind of I think it comes from like that laser cutting. There's kind of somewhat of an industrial type thing, but you see there, and they punch out really easy, but you can see that laser cut there. You can actually like see through it and see a little bit of light through there if you get it at the right angle. So here's your French in blue and your British in red, and you've got, looks like they're strength points, which is kind of typical of a CDG, and you've got leaders, and you've got some control markers, some destroyed markers there, year and season, so some administrative markers. And here's the French, their leaders. Looks like you got a victory point tracked there as well. Let's turn these over. They are dual-sided, so you see a real good view of them there. Then we get, here's the map. We'll say that it's a paper map, which is typical for Blue Panther type production. We'll do the rules here in a second. Let's look at these. These are, here's your victory point tracker for the French. So you have your active card, draw deck, and discard. And you've got the sequence of play, reinforcement, movement, combat. And so sequence of play for British and sequence of play for the French is reinforcement, movement, combat, and end phase. So you do the end phase after the French here. And then there's one for the British and one for the French, and then you track your victory points on top there. So get that out of the way. Let's take a look at the map here. Doing things a little bit different than I normally do. And then we do the rule books first. And what we'll do here is let's pull out a little bit so we can see this a little bit better here. So here's your map. And so you have these different, so you kind of a point to point, you'll be moving through these dotted lines here. You've got your 4 seasons here, your years. Here's your movement chart, leader loss chart, combat loss chart. So there's really your combat table. And you've got basically the Northeast American continent there. And the red, I imagine, are the starting places for the British, and the blue for the French. And you have forts and villages delineated on here as well, and towns and cities. So Boston is a city right there. So let's look at the rules here real quick. It looks like you've got a setup on the back. It's kind of nice. And the rules themselves are 19 pages, but barely. Looks like they're basically 18 pages, but that's history. And you got designer notes. And looks like you might have an example of play here. So yeah, here's a combat example. And so really it's 13 pages. 13 pages of rules. This is relatively large font. So not too deep there. So let's turn to the front here. You've got your list of components. You've got your setup, location, strength points, and leaders there. It's a little glossy, so sorry for the shine there. We can go in a little bit more since I've looked at the map. Let's go a little bit closer so we maybe get rid of some of that shine. And you got some nice little notes here, like what is a strength point? So it talks about that. Talking about your player aids. I mean, it's really relatively bullet point format, so that's good. What is a victory point? Here's your seasons, reinforcement phase, movement phase. And as I said, it's kind of bullet points, so it's boom, boom, boom. I kind of like that. What is a defense value? So this looks like it's a really easy game to get into as far as, I mean, strategic level, so there's a certain amount of complexity there, but this looks like it tries to address it in a relatively straightforward and useful manner, gamer-friendly manner, and giving you some note boxes here to kind of explain some of the different, concepts. So that's the rules. There's only 13 pages there. So these are the cards. Normally they do a double slip off, so it's got a cross type format, and slip one, then slip the other off. Whoop, drop some cards here. So, for Blue Panther, they do decent sized cards. They're not super thin. They're not so thick and rigid they curl up. But decent sized cards. I mean, you probably want to sleeve these maybe if you play this a lot, given that I think it's a card driven game, so it's going to require a lot of use of the cards. So here's all the French cards with the blue back. You've got some reinforcements. Okay. Here's a roll of 6 dice, extra supply. So pretty cool there. Got a little bit of art at the top. You've got some ability there. So maybe not a pure CDG in that there's not usually activation. Normally in a CDG you have activations points and then you spend those to do certain things. These you seem to have like reinforcement cards, movement cards, interrupt cards, and there's a whole thing here about how you use interrupt cards, and then combat cards. So maybe it's more card assisted in that regard. So there's the French cards. Then you have the British cards have a red back. And if I haven't said this already, Bill sent this to me, so I want to thank him for sending this to me to take a look at and review. And I want to do of course, want to get an unboxing as soon as I can. I just got this weekend or over the weekend, and so I wanted to get an unboxing out. Then I'll probably do at least an after action talking about a little bit about the gameplay. So then I'll be able to explain how these cards are used, from reinforcements to movement to combat and interrupt and the like. As I said, I have some familiarity with the other games, those that are based on the redo of the Bloody Mohawk and Savage Wilderness, and so he was kind enough to send me the new editions of those as well. So those are coming. A little bit of spoiler alert or teaser there. So that is coming. I'll get an unboxing on those as well, but the playthrough on those will be relatively easy because I might actually be able to do a whole playthrough. They're not overly complex, nor are they, take very long to play. So let's figure out how we do that. This one might be an after action, but those might be an actual gameplay. Although I have struggled with gameplays in the past. So this is what you get in the box of the Struggle for New France. You get a rule booklet, which looks relatively straightforward and has somewhat of a bullet point format and explaining the game to you. You get these counters, very thick counters that are kind of laser cut. Ooh, look at that, just pushing it there, they're coming out. They come out very easy, and kind of a unique counter. And there are really not nibs on it the way they do it. So kind of cool there. You get these player aids, which are basically for each of the factions to keep track of their cards and victory points and the like. You get 2 decks of cards for each of the factions there. I'm pulling up a little bit. You can't even see everything that's on all the goodies that come in the box. And then you get the box. There you have it. So this is the Struggle for New France from Bill Molyneaux. This is the second edition of it, so look forward to see if that's out there. I'm not sure how Bill is calling out his companies now, whether it's BMG Games, like it says on here, like BMG Bill Molyneaux Games, or he also called it Fastplay Wargames. Maybe there's a little bit more explanation that in the other games that I'll be unboxing. I'll look in the rules there and see how he's doing that. But his name is kind of synonymous with the French and Indian War now, so you might want to, anytime you look up some of the videos and some of the stuff he's done out there, but especially his other games that he has out there. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. I want to thank Bill for sending this. I'm looking forward to playing this and then getting a little bit more content out to you all on it. Love to know your thoughts on this. Are you familiar with the first edition of this? Are you familiar with playing any other Bill's games? Are you excited about where he might be taking this genre and this taking his games to a different level and to maybe a different audience even? Love to know your thoughts on that. Anyway, thanks all for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Let me know you stopped by. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this game or anything about Bill's other games. Love to hear about it, or anything else you want to talk about. I listen to it all. I'm not a hard one to please on that regard. Anyway, thanks all and have a great day. Thanks for watching.